I am on a quest to beat every game for the Nintendo Gamecube. Every single one. However, each game is chosen at random by this horrendous wheel, so we are never certain what's coming next. My name is Rami, and this is my quest to beat the entire GameCube library. Game number 10 is Sonic Adventure DX, an enhanced port of the 1998 Dreamcast classic. It was released in 2003, developed by Sonic Team, and published by Sega. I have very fond memories of playing this one back when I was a kid, and I was excited to take it out for another spin. Sorry. It's become pretty fashionable to hate on the adventure games in the past few years, but do they earn that ire? Let's dive in. Man, the nostalgia here hit me like a ton of bricks. It's been almost 2 decades since I last played this game, and yet this menu screen takes me right back. To beat this one, we'll be playing through the adventure mode. There are 6 playable characters, and to unlock the final boss, we'll need to complete all of their stories. I decided to kick things off with the titular hedgehog, and I locked in Sonic. There he is!
Oh yeah! This is happening!
It's so bad, but so good, dude. The lip syncing in this game is atrocious, but the voice acting is classic gold. We're introduced to one of our antagonists here, Chaos. Context is provided throughout the game, but for now, he's just a scary blobby boy who's impervious to bullets, but not hedgehogs, baby. This fight is an absolute wash. He never hit me, and we just used the homing attack 3 times to take him out. He sneaks away down a drain, which is pretty cute, and then we see our other antagonist, Dr. Eggman, calling Chaos the God of Destruction. Spooky. We catch up with Sonic, who's chilling by the pool, until he sees Tails' plane in the sky and delivers this stunning dialogue.
Tails? Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
This then leads us to our first level, the fan favorite, Emerald Coast. This is essentially the blueprint for all modern 3D Sonic games. Movement feels a little sluggish, with the characters having slight lag on directional changes, but otherwise it holds up pretty well. Sonic himself has some nice simple mechanics. Besides running, he can spin dash to increase his speed, jump surprisingly high, and use the homing attack to instantly attack the closest enemy or hit important objects. It isn't all gravy though. I died by going too fast, which sent me flying over a ledge, and call me crazy, but going too fast in a Sonic game just shouldn't be a thing. Generally though, I think this game puts its best foot forwards. The level is fast paced and has a series of launch pads and springs to corral the player in the right direction, without needing to slow down. The homing attack was also just genius design. Allowing the player to attack whilst at top speed and not needing to jump too precisely really helps keep the momentum. Overall, a very pleasant start. There were very few enemies on this stage, so it was mostly just running around and enjoying the various set pieces on the way to the goal. After only a few minutes, we found our buddy Tails and locked in a spicy C rank. Tails tells us that he crashed whilst testing out a new power supply for his plane, a Chaos Emerald. I will assume during this video that you know the gist of the Sonic franchise, but these are essentially the super powerful MacGuffins everyone is after throughout the story. We're then told to visit Tails at his workshop. That thrusts us into the hub world. Every character can explore these between levels, and this is how we unlock and navigate to new stages. On my way, I did briefly stop into the Chow Garden, as chat really wanted to see it. If you haven't heard of Chow before, they're essentially little Tamagotchi bros that you can hatch, raise, breed, and enter into competitions. They're super cute, and this is always the #1 requested feature that Sonic fans ask to be brought back into the franchise. We even entered our little guy into a race just for fun. I didn't think he had a chance, I hadn't trained him at all, but he shocked us by pulling in a cheeky dub. What a beast! Honestly, the Chow Garden is like a whole other game within a game, so I'm going to leave it there for this video. It isn't part of our win condition, but I highly recommend this video by Cybershell if you want to learn more. It's kind of amazing how deep the rabbit hole goes on these little goobers. After taking a train from Station Square to the Mystic Ruins, we reached Tails' workshop, and this led to our first boss encounter. Eggman wants the 7 Chaos Emeralds for his evil scheme, and he says that he will take them by force. He brings out his latest machine, the Egg Hornet, and the fight begins. Another pretty easy one here. He flies around launching missiles for a bit, then charges at us with these lance spike thingies. When he's stuck in the ground, we can attack him, and it's just a case of rinsing and repeating.
Well, that wasn't so hard. Oh no!
Yoink!
Come on, Chaos. Time to eat.
So now we have the plot. Eggman wants to feed Chaos all 7 emeralds, which will turn him into the God of Destruction. He can then use that to wipe out Station Square and build Eggman Land in its place. The rest of the game is about trying to stop him by finding the emeralds and beating Chaos. The hub worlds are surprisingly big here, and they're also really barren in content. Running around them isn't especially fun. I definitely think they made the right decision in not bringing these back for the sequel. I won't spend much time showing these, it's just busy work and running from A to B. Stage 2 is Windy Valley, and I'm a big fan of this one. For a slightly enhanced Dreamcast game, it looks fantastic. Vibrant colors, huge vistas, and the soundtrack for this game slaps. There's a cool section where we need to scale the inside of a tornado before we can progress any further. None of this is particularly difficult gameplay, and there are some sections that can feel overly long with no enemies and just linear paths, but overall I was impressed. They do some neat camera tricks throughout the game to increase the sense of speed, and for something that originated in 1998, I think they crushed it. After grabbing a Chaos Emerald, we returned to Station Square, and it's now evening. After looking around, I entered an open sewer, as you do, and inside I found some delightful sewer shoes. These unlock the Lightspeed Dash. This allows us to follow trails of rings in an instant, and this in turn was used to unlock Stage 3, Casinopolis. This zone is very unique. We need to collect enough rings to fill up a Scrooge McDuck-style money pit in order to reach the emerald, and we earn these by playing pinball. This is so weird. You play pinball, but you need to collect cards that pay out with poker rules. For instance, we started out by getting 1 pair, which barely pays anything. Somehow I moved from the normal pinball level to a bonus red one, and that has way more cards on it. We use these to get a straight and a butt ton of rings. Just when I thought things couldn't get any stranger, dude, what is happening right now? Why is Knights taking me on a magical journey? What was that? So, yeah, I don't really know what that was. Perhaps Sega were trying to sell more copies of Knights for the Dreamcast? Regardless, we kept on farming rings, and while a fun enough distraction, I'd say pinball definitely overstayed its welcome. Once we had fat stacks, it was time to head to the vault. Hey, where the hell's the vault? There it is. Let's Scrooge McDuck this thing. Now, I think Sonic is typically a Gary Stu in nearly every appearance he's ever had throughout the years, but in this game, Eggman really ups his game. He manages to yoink yet another emerald from us, and he even uses sleeping gas to knock us out. We're getting bullied. I spent quite a bit of time running around before the next stage. After all these years, I'd just forgotten how to progress, and I was chatting with random bozos in the hub worlds. I also stole a golden chow egg, Indiana Jones style, and we hatched a little fella for good measure. Eventually I remembered that there's a hidden key near the casino, and we used it to unlock the next stage in the ruins. A Sonic staple, the Ice Cap Zone. I found this one a bit tedious compared to Emerald Coast or Windy Valley. There's a lot of stopping and starting, as you're essentially climbing vertically, rather than running around. There is a section where you jump across stalactites, and this gave me a sudden realization. Dude, I just realized this. We're playing Prince of Persia on those icicles. We're playing Top Angler by fishing later. We're playing Evolution Snowboarding by snowboarding in a minute. We're reliving the last 9 games. I continue climbing using various springs, launch pads, and platforms, and this section went on for several minutes. I was feeling a little restless, and I wanted to go fast. Thankfully, the end of the stage delivers. Just like the classic Ice Cap Zone, this one contains a snowboarding section. The controls are great here, movement's really snappy, and I honestly wish running felt this responsive. There are also several ramps that we can perform tricks from by pressing A with good timing, and these catapult you to ludicrous speed. This was a super fun section, and it left me wanting more. As a Spyro and Crash Bandicoot fan, I love the interspersion of new mechanics and little bespoke minigames in levels. Back in the hub world, we encounter Knuckles, who in classic fashion has been tricked into thinking Sonic is the bad guy. He attacks us, and that leads to a fight containing the famous voice line used in many a meme.
Oh no.
Oh no. After an easy fight, we get another cutscene where we lose even more Chaos Emeralds. We got some serious Butterfingers here, dude. We see Chaos, who is much bigger than last time, and Eggman feeds him the newly acquired ones too. This turns him into a big jelly shark boy, and it kicks off yet another boss fight. This fight is simple, but very tedious. We just need to dodge attacks until he surfaces, and then hit him to do a fraction of his HP bar. I more or less just spammed jump, and got in a cheeky homing attack as soon as he was vulnerable. After several minutes, he finally went down. Eggman then reveals his masterpiece, a giant floating fortress. I haven't talked too much about the voice acting so far, but it's definitely one of the highlights of the game, and Dean Reginald Bristow absolutely killed it as Eggman.
Behold my floating masterpiece, the egg carrier!
However, the character models definitely don't do the voice acting justice. I love how their eyebrows and ears just flare around wildly with every voice line. We need to chase after the egg carrier, so we head to Tails' workshop where he reveals that he's also been cooking. I love this cutscene. Again, this game was made in 1998. The next mini-stage, however, is not so hot. We need to catch up with the egg carrier by avoiding enemies and shooting down missiles along the way. I literally just flew in circles and spammed shoot. There is zero threat here, whatsoever, and the whole thing seriously drags. Eventually, Eggman got tired of my circular shenanigans, and he lasered us clean out of the sky. Somehow Sonic survives falling from a plane for hundreds of feet and landing directly on his head. While searching for Tails, we encounter Amy, and she says that she is guarding a mysterious bird from Eggman's robot. None of this makes much sense now, but it's elaborated on in Amy's story. She sees a sign for Twinkle Park saying cute couples get in for free, and asks Sonic to go with her. I actually streamed this on Valentine's Day, so we thought that was a cute coincidence. Anyway, Amy somehow vanishes in the 5 seconds it takes to ride the elevator, so now we need to head to Twinkle Park alone. This level begins with us yoinking a bumper car and using it to race along a giant track, as you do. The controls here were dicey, it's very hard to steer, and you can reach some impressive speeds. The track is actually pretty elaborate, and I continue to be impressed with how much work goes into these little sections. At the end of the track, we jump down a hole, and then we take a rocket roller coaster into the park itself. This game is so extra, man. This stage is pretty simple. We just need to navigate through the park to free some animals trapped by Eggman's robot. This one has a great aesthetic though. Super jazzy, neon colors, and various funfair attractions make for some very cool set pieces. We freed the critters and moved on to the next level. Speed Highway's a fun one. There's a good mixture of platforming and high-speed segments, and I think this always leads to the most satisfying levels rather than focusing specifically on one or the other. If I'm playing as Sonic, I want to spend the majority of my time zooming around, and this one delivers on that. After navigating this huge metropolis, we freed some more critters, and it was time to enter the Sonic endgame. We see Amy has been captured by the robot from before, and they are both tractor beamed onto the egg carrier. This leads to the Red Mountain stage where we need to chase the carrier and find a way to rescue her. I've always found this level a little dull personally. We need to progress across a series of mountaintops using various monkey bars, ladders, springs, and rockets, but the environment's really drab, and the enemies are just usually so negligible you just brush straight past them. Things spice up a little towards the end of the stage. We enter a volcano, and we need to navigate pools of lava and dodge jets of fire. I mostly just cheese this section though. If you take damage, you get some very generous iframes as long as you have at least one ring, and I just use these to plow clean through everything. This led to rescuing more furry friends, and brings us close to the end of Sonic's story. Tails is back with yet another plane and wants to help us reach the egg carrier. This led to another sky chase section. Yay! This time I realized we could sit in the bottom right corner and literally nothing could hit us. We were just big chillin', waiting for it to end. There is one neat bit where Tails transforms the plane into battle mode so that this time we can stop Eggman from lasering us down. It's nice to see some character growth and learning, so kudos for that. The fight itself is a cakewalk. We just dodged a few attacks and then blew up his cannon in one volley. After a less than stellar landing, we are now on the final hub world of the three, the egg carrier. Eggman shows a transformation of his own and tells us that we can only reach him by traversing the sky deck. Now, this level is visually great and has one of my favorite songs in the game, so I don't hate it by any means. But this was the first time in this playthrough that I really felt the game's age. There are some pretty severe level design flaws and bugs, and unlike when I was a kid, these really stood out to me. He's just flying around back there somewhere. Level design much? What was that? Huh? Huh? Oh. Okay. Let me in! Let me in! These aren't a deal breaker or anything, but I encountered a bunch of bugs throughout the playthrough without intentionally looking for them. There are still some awesome sections, like fighting this big boy cannon. We're constantly pulled around by extreme winds, and we need to destroy all the small ones, whilst avoiding cannon fire or getting blown off the ship. Though the destruction animation may have warranted a second crack from the devs. The coolest and yet easily buggiest section of the level comes right at the end. You need to reach the animal capsule on a central platform by hitting switches that manipulate gravity. This allows you to run on various surfaces. Super interesting in principle, but it just wasn't working properly. Multiple times I managed to break the gravity by jumping too high or moving too quickly, and that led to me getting flung around like a ragdoll, and at times the level just being simply uncompletable and forcing me to take a death. Again, it didn't ruin my experience, but it killed the momentum, and it definitely dampened my enjoyment. Nevertheless, we managed to lock in the dub, and we headed to confront Eggman. He yoinks Amy's bird friend, and reveals that it was hiding a Chaos Emerald, and that's why his robot was chasing it. He then summons Gamma, one of his robots, to fight us. After quite possibly the most trivial boss fight so far, Amy prevents Sonic from destroying Gamma because apparently he saved her and they're now friends. We'll learn more about that later, but for now the ship is losing altitude and Sonic tells everyone else to dip so he can go after Eggman. We encounter Chaos, who is even bigger this time. He has consumed all but one emerald. We're also introduced to the final playable character and my personal favorite.
Oh yes, attack Sonic now! Froggy?
Froggy!
I must say Froggy!
If he's your friend, I'll help you.
This is Big the Cat, and he's just a lovable oaf. His entire story has nothing to do with saving the world. He just wants his frog friend back. Bless him. Chaos 6 might look imposing, but it's really not much harder than any other boss we've dealt with thus far. Eggman spams out a bunch of these little mine things on the floor. If we jump into them, we can then pick them up and throw them at Chaos to freeze him. That lets us use a homing attack. You just need to do this 4 times, and it's super easy, barely an inconvenience. Eggman then quickly dips as the carrier is going down, and Sonic just jumps straight off.
I hate Eggman. Where's this?
I didn't remember that. It goes flat. We see a ball of light guiding us towards this ancient temple, and inside is Sonic's penultimate level. This is called Lost World, and is one of my favorites for sure. I don't think I enjoyed it when I was a kid. I probably found it too difficult, but playing it again, I was shocked by how fun this was. There's this really cool section that feels like something from Shadow of the Colossus, where you ride a giant rock snake through the water. The idea is that you use switches to raise and lower the water level, and you use the snake to ascend to higher platforms while looking for these 3 glyphs that are needed to open the door to the next area. I still can't believe that this game originally came out in 1998. I think it's absolutely incredible if you keep that in mind. After riding what can only be described as an ancient water slide and running away from a giant boulder that's on fire, the pièce de résistance was this series of wall panels that are activated with switches, and you can then run on them, defying gravity. The camera holds up surprisingly well for these sections, and honestly throughout the game as a whole. I love this stage. After the shambles that was Skydeck, this one felt really tightly designed, and is probably in contention for my favorite in the entire game. We find a mural on the wall depicting Chaos in his ultimate form, and it's time for some lore. That ball of light from earlier warps us into a memory where the Master Emerald altar is ablaze. We also see a bunch of seemingly dead Chow on the floor, which is really grisly. I love those little guys. We're introduced to Takal, an ancient member of Knuckles' tribe, who we will see several times more as we're trickle-fed the backstory. Sonic wakes up outside the temple and spots Eggman flying into the distance, and it's finally time to finish Chapter 1. Yeah, look, there it is. That's Robotic Land. So he just built that in the time I was in that level. I don't know who Eggman's builders are, but I'm going to need their number. Our final level is appropriately named Final Egg. This is a decent one. We need to chase after Eggman through a huge industrial-themed stage full of the most elaborate traps we've seen yet. There are spike traps, flame jets, and scores of enemies all over the place. I still think the enemies in general are pretty negligible in this game. The homing attack is just so insanely useful that you can shred through them without much hassle. But I did die more on this stage than pretty much any other, thanks to some very pesky jumping sections and being surprised by traps and enemies a handful of times. A suitable final stage for sure. Our last task is to defeat Eggman's final creation, the Egg Viper. Anyone that has fought this boss before will have this voice line seared into their mind.
Get a load at this. Get a load at this. Get a load at this.
He says that a lot. This boss starts pretty simply. We just dodge his lasers and hit him when he exposes the cockpit. The ways we have to hit him though get more elaborate each time. After 2 hits, he has a new attack. He charges across the platform towards you directly. And after 3, he then throws these saw platform thingies, and you can hit him by jumping on top of them. Next, he destroys the other platform, so you'll need to finish the fight on just the one section. Another spinny blade attack, and he's down to his last bit of health.
It's no use. Give up. No way. I can't believe this.
Watch out. He's up to something.
Oh yeah! Oh shit! Ah! Woo! Yeah, I forgot he does that. If you just stand still, he kills you.
Hey, I'll play with you some other time.
And that, my friends, is the Sonic part of the game completed. Now, I know this section of the video is long, but I do have a plan. A massive amount of this game is recycled content for each character. The story also interweaves between all of them, so the idea is that you play from each character's perspective and get all the lore before confronting the final boss. By going to such detail with Sonic, I can now focus on explaining what makes other characters different and any lore specific to their playthrough without needing to repeat everything 6 times. With Sonic done and dusted, we can now move on to one of my favorite playthroughs, Tails. Tails' story is almost identical to Sonic's, including levels and bosses, so I will be going through this quite briskly. You get almost the exact same cutscenes with minimal dialogue changes, so you can see why I'll only be highlighting what is new or different. Tails spends the majority of his playthrough trying to clear every objective before Sonic can. I assume Sonic's perspective is canon, but it's pretty fun completely annihilating him on every level. Why play the stage when you can fly? Tails is so fun, dude. I love him. You could use Flight to just trivialize every level, and after playing most of them already as Sonic, I made a game of trying to speedrun with Tails as much as possible. If you were going to do just one character playthrough, this would be my pick for sure. Strangely, Tails does have a completely different Cassinopolis stage than Sonic, with no ring collecting or pinball, and yet you are still racing to the finish. I consider that a dub though, as I much prefer flying over everything to pinball. These stages are like lightning, my guy. I love them. Taking the speedrun to an even greater level, Tails doesn't even play the Ice Cap stage. You just snowboard race Sonic for the Emerald. I know I'm gushing here, but this was my favorite bit of the playthrough. We were shredding through stages, and I low-key wish the whole game was this big of an adrenaline rush. Wow, Tails only does the snowboarding. We've already done like 4 stages in the time it took me to do like 2 of Sonic's. It's crazy. We then have another riveting fight with our main man Knuckles. Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no.
And the exact same boss fight against Chaos 4. Sheesh, I think you do this particular fight with almost every character, and it's so slow and boring.
What? What are you thinking?
We even had to do Sky Chase again with our god tier strat. Ugh. After getting shot down by Eggman once more, we find a Chaos Emerald just big chillin' in the middle of the jungle. But Big's friend Froggy eats it before we can grab it, so we need to chase him down to get it back. Now it's a Tails exclusive stage. It's the same mechanics as snowboarding, but it takes place in a desert and you go through checkpoints to build a chain. I'm not really sure what the point of the checkpoints was, but it did remind me that I will have to play Sonic Riders at some point for this challenge. Ew! We nab young Frogbert, but before we can retrieve the emerald, Tails is whisked away by the light of Tikal. This time we're sent to the Echidna tribe's temple when their civilization was still in its prime. I got so lost here, for the life of me I couldn't remember where I was supposed to go, and just ended up flying around for minutes on end looking for the next objective. Eventually I came across this badge power-up that makes me look fabulous and has the added benefit of turning me into a Beyblade. We get another lore dump here. Tikal tells us that the Master Emerald has the power to control the 7 Chaos Emeralds.
Write that down, write that down!
We then get booted from the memory just in time for Big to come crashing in, causing Froggy to escape. Tails has already collected the emerald though, and I'm sure he won't lose this one. Surely. He uses the emerald to power that second blue plane we saw in Sonic's playthrough, and of course, that meant I had to do yet another Sky Chase act. When will it end, man? Things play out the same as they did for Sonic, so that means we return to the Sky Deck for round 2. Now last time was a little tedious with the various bugs and level design breaks I encountered, but this time, we just fly over all of them. It's free real estate. Tails is just so chill to play as, and it's a ton of fun trying to optimize your path for maximum speed and cheese strats. In this version of events, it's Tails that beats Gamma. When the carrier starts losing altitude, Sonic tells us all to escape, so we take Amy and dip. After dropping Amy off to safety, Tails sees Eggman sneaking away from the egg carrier, and it's time for Tails' final level. He ends his playthrough with Speed Highway, and rather than racing Sonic, we're actually racing Eggman this time to stop him from blowing up Station Square with a missile. It was time to put all that I'd learned to the test and fly over everything. I'm going to legitimately miss playing as Tails. I had a blast on every stage as this furry fella, and he plays completely differently in Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. But before we say goodbye, we have one last rodeo.
Oh no! It's Robotnik! So you beat me to the missile, you little pest.
Rabble, 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 rabble.
I will make you all pay for this.
Our final boss is a Tails exclusive, that's kinda cool. We need to defeat Eggman and his Egg Walker. The fight starts out very slowly as he needs to walk around for a bit and he moves at a snail's pace, but once he stands still, you just need to dodge his stomps and hit the leg that caused the tremor. He fires various bombs and missiles at you, and I took a lot of hits from these, but as long as you have one ring in a Sonic game, you're essentially unkillable, so we were chillin'. And after a few more hits...
I can't believe this!
Oof.
Hey, I did it! You saved the day! You're the best! I did it all by myself!
Alright, Tails done. GG Tails. Oh wait, what? I was playing his theme song. Why didn't it cut to the credits? Why did they do that? Why did they not just keep the song playing? What do you mean? Alrighty, 2 down and 4 to go. As you can see, we smoked that one. I think that took about a third of the time that Sonic did, and Tails isn't even the fastest playthrough, so we are going to be schmoovin' through the others. I decided to finish off the third in the main trio with Knuckles before playing the Odd Ducks, so we jumped straight in. Knuckles has very little overlap with the other characters in playstyle and story, and it's also one of the shortest playthroughs to do. We see Eggman using the egg carrier to approach the Angel Island. This is where Knuckles lives, and it's the same place where Tikal's memories take place. Knuckles, as a descendant of the Echidna tribe, is fated to spend his life guarding the Master Emerald. Sadly though, he's not very good at it. Chaos just moseys on in and smashes the old girl, while Knuckles does surprise Pikachu face. Chaos then kicks his ass and leaves. Without the Master Emerald's power, the Angel Island falls from the sky into the ocean and somehow doesn't cause a global disaster. Knuckles then heads to Station Square in order to retrieve all of the broken shards from the smashed emerald. We begin our search by heading to City Hall. I'll be blunt here, this is probably the character that would be the most boring to do a play-by-play for. Knuckles' levels revolve around being in a very small, contained space, and needing to retrieve 3 shards of the Master Emerald to complete. At the bottom of the screen, we have a radar of sorts. The shards beep and light up when you're close to them, and change color to indicate proximity, ranging from idle, meaning far away, to red being in the immediate area. It's essentially a treasure hunt, and the shards are spawned in at random locations in every playthrough. I'll be giving you the Cliff's Notes on Knuckles stages rather than mentioning every shard that we found. Stage 2 was Casinopolis, and unlike Sonic playing pinball or Tails racing Sonic inside the vault, we're once again looking for shards. The first two didn't take me very long to find. The third, however, I could not track that sucker down for the life of me. I was running around for 8 minutes looking for it, and no matter where I looked, I just couldn't figure it out. I found a bunch of locations where the radar was bright red, but still couldn't work out the exact spot. I figured it must be through a secret passage somewhere. You could even hit the Tikal light orbs for her to show you the direction of the shard, but because these fly through walls, they were absolutely no help whatsoever. After an excruciatingly long time, I did find a button that I'd previously missed, opening up a little trapdoor, and I was finally able to land the all-elusive shard. Now it's time for more Tikal exposition, so as is tradition, she brings Knuckles into a memory of her past.
Father, please don't!
To call, the 7 emeralds are essential to our survival. It is for the good of all our people.
How can I make you understand? Attacking other countries, stealing and killing can't be the right path to peace. No one has the right to take their holy grounds. I beg you, Father.
You've probably got a pretty good sense of what the story is with Tikal and her tribe at this point. We'll get the last few details during this Knuckles story. While exploring Station Square for more shards, Knuckles sees Eggman sneaking around with what looks like a shard. After confronting him, Eggman reveals it's actually a Chaos Emerald and says that he'll use Knuckles as a guinea pig, which I guess aren't humanoid like hedgehogs and foxes in this universe. He summons Chaos, and we see that this is how Chaos became Chaos 2 and got jacked with a fancy hairdo. Funnily enough, this is the hardest Chaos fight in the game, I reckon, despite only having eaten 2 emeralds. He bounces around as an invincible ball for ages, shields any attack you throw at him, and it can even spread across the floor, and that damages you if you touch it. This is legit so much harder than Chaos 4 or 6, it's laughable. I even died once by running out of rings, which is one of the only times that happened in the whole playthrough. Still, we managed to take him out on our second attempt. In spite of Eggman just trying to kill him, Knuckles instantly believes him when he says that Sonic is after the Master Emerald pieces. What a wally. We're thrust back into the hub world, and once again, I couldn't remember where I was going or what I was doing. Eventually I did find this cave and got locked inside. This leads to Knuckles getting the Shovel Claws power-up, which can let us dig for rings and shards in Knuckles levels. I do really like how once a character gains a power-up, you see it on them in every interaction in subsequent playthroughs for other characters, just a cute little detail. With my newfound digging powers, I was able to access the next stage, Red Mountain. Again, Knuckles stages are very repetitive. We did the usual of flying around and tracking down the 3 shards. I will say, just like with Tails, I like that you can really cook as Knuckles, and you can smash out his stages in a couple of minutes if you play them well. We then see why Knuckles attacked Sonic and Tails in their playthroughs. He mistakes the green Chaos Emerald for a shard, and after listening to Eggman, he attacks them to take it back. This fight is just as trivial from the other side. I spammed the absolute hell out of the punch button, and Sonic went down like a sack of potatoes. Yet another Chaos 4 fight after that.
Why?
After beating that fight for the 3rd time so far, Knuckles really doesn't have much left in his story. Next was the Lost World, and this was actually a really nice snappy level. Despite it being on the larger side, I got some very good shard spawn RNG, and found them all without much hassle at all. I must say, I find Knuckles very boring to play. So far, he was the low point of the run. Another Tikal memory here, and this time it's her begging the Guardian of the Emeralds to protect itself and the Chow from her father and his advancing army. The Guardian says that it cannot leave though, and Tikal states that she will try to convince her father not to pursue the Chaos Emeralds. Knuckles returns to the present day altar, and using the magic powers of green, he rebuilds most of the Master Emerald. There's now only a couple of shards missing, and it's time to put this story to bed. Like every character, this leads Knuckles to the Egg Carrier, and we go back to the good old Sky Deck. Thankfully, unlike Sonic, Knuckles can glide around the janky level design, and he only needs to explore a very small area to find the shards in. This was, just like all the other Knuckles stages, decently fast and not especially exciting. I can't say I'll miss him half as much as I do Tails. In one more Tikal flashback, we see the same flaming ruins we did in Sonic's playthrough, and she tells us that she could not stop her father and the Guardian from fighting. We now have all the shards and we're ready to return home, but before we could do so, we see that Chaos 6 has regenerated after fighting Sonic, so Knuckles needs to step in and put it down for good. The fight plays out just as it does for Sonic, only rather than Eggman dropping the freezing mines, they just kind of appear from nowhere. For a second time, we take out Chaos 6, and Knuckles says it's finally time to return to the Angel Island. Knuckles uses the power of green to complete the Master Emerald, and with it restored, Angel Island returns to the sky. He says that he'll probably be on the island guarding the Emerald forever, but he's happy and at peace with that, bringing his story to an end. 3 characters down, 3 to go. I wanted to save Big and Gamma for last, so we logged in Amy for story number 4. She's shopping in Station Square, and it suddenly becomes dark. We see this cool cutscene that's honestly pretty impressive for a 90s game of the egg carrier flying overhead before returning to her perspective.
Eggman, can it be? What's that? Ah! Watch it! Watch it! Ow! You should watch where you're going, buddy! Hey, are you alright? You look kind of hurt. What's this? Ah! Uh-oh!
I won't lie, Amy's story feels extremely tacked on compared to the first 3. She says that she'll protect the bird from Eggman's robot, and her missions mostly revolve around running away from said robot. We have that same Twinkle Park cutscene from earlier, but this time from Amy's perspective. I do think it's a cool idea to have the chronology of the events all match up throughout each story and show us what each character was up to at any given time. Just like in Sonic's story, she takes the elevator and immediately ditches him for whatever reason, and this leads us to Twinkle Park. Amy plays very differently to the other 3 characters. She is way slower, but her stages are pretty short to compensate for this. We need to reach the end of the level whilst protecting Birdie from the evil robot dude, and to do this we have the Pico Pico Hammer. We can use the hammer to attack, gain airspeed, and bounce off the floor to reach some impressive heights. Amy's stages are much more claustrophobic in design, like this House of Mirrors we enter. This does a really good job of making the robot feel like a bigger threat, even if you can just Shrek him with the hammer if you need to. I like that her levels feel very different, even if I'm not a huge fan of how she handles. I also enjoy seeing the same level multiple times, but tackling them in a completely different way. I just like this game in general, man. Sonic Adventure 3 when? Now, despite me spending 5 minutes dodging the robot, in the very next cutscene, Amy gets herself captured. She and Birdie are imprisoned on the egg carrier, and Gamma demands that she hands over the bird. Amy then uses the power of friendship on Gamma, and it's super effective. She asks him to help them, and he cannot compute why she cares more about the bird than her own safety. Birdie then flies over and gives him the Puss in Boots eyes, and no one can resist that. This causes Gamma to go rogue from his programming, and he chooses to free them, to which Amy says they are now friends. Hey, I didn't say it's Shakespeare or even make sense, but that's what happened. Stage 2 is the Hot Shelter, and honestly another decent one. Amy has a much more puzzle-based level design than the other characters, and this one does a solid job on that front. There's a few big rooms where you need to adjust the water level, some big ladders to be moved while fending off the robot, a series of steam room gears that you traverse and you can change the direction of with switches, a huge lift to ride between multiple floors, and a big room where you need to locate 4 colored boxes and place them into their corresponding hole. It even has this little moment when you finish it. That's pretty cool. Gotta say, I was impressed with Amy's levels so far. I don't want to do slow puzzles and clunky levels as Sonic, I want to go fast. But Amy being a slow character means I can appreciate the more varied and methodical level design. Back on the deck of the egg carrier, we see that cutscene from earlier where Eggman crane games Birdie and takes the Chaos Emerald he was hiding. Amy protects Gamma, and this time we know why. He freed her and Birdie from prison, because he's just a top bloke. Like in Tails' story, he saves Amy from the falling ship and lands them both in Station Square. After he leaves, she notices that Birdie is wearing a pendant, and it contains a picture of his family. She concludes that Eggman must have them captive in his Mystic Ruins base, and vows to set them free. It's only stage 3 for Amy, and we're on Final Egg. Sheesh! For perspective, that was stage 10 for Sonic. The robot's still chasing her despite Eggman having the Chaos Emerald, so we still need to flee one last time. I think giving Amy so few levels was a really smart choice, because it means they're all really fun to play. This one is stuffed full of traps and enemies, but it feels so good using the hammer floor bounce to soar over as many of them as possible. I also love how much flavor they give for Eggman's weird inventions. There's this wacky walking elevator that you use to move between floors. I mentioned it for Knuckles earlier, but during levels you can find balls of light that are to Carl and she will give you hints. Most of these left a lot to be desired.
One of these doors is the right one.
Thanks to Carl.
Find the correct door.
He always did have my back. Classic, hilarious to Carl prank, dude. This stage was much shorter than her other two, but once again, I kinda loved it. Amy now only needs to beat her final boss to finish this story, but I first spent another 10 minutes getting lost. I swear an hour of my playtime at this point was probably roaming around the hub world and messing around in the Chow Garden. In my defense, there is zero guidance given on where to go here, and I think it's still pretty dumb even with hindsight. It turns out that there's a warp in the ruins that leads to a raft, and that takes you to the post-crash egg carrier. Thanks, game. Very cool. Birds.
Oh no! Are you okay?
The bird, no!
You idiot! How could you do this?
Alright, son. After being chased by this goober for the best part of an hour, I was very much ready to smash him with my hammer. But do I need to, like, bump him into the wall, maybe? Yeah. And he shows his weak spot. Yeah. Let me hit him. Whoa! He's doing a thing. I'm dead! Alright, dude. For maybe only the third or fourth time in this entire playthrough, I died to damage here. But that spin attack is actually nuts, my guy. It's almost impossible to get your rings back after getting hit, and he spins for quite a while too. Thankfully, on my third attempt, I sussed out the timing and managed to survive the spin to win strats. One last series of hammer bops to make him vulnerable let me finally finish off our robot stalker. Amy checks on Birdie and sees that he is okay, thank goodness. Birdie and family then say thank you and farewell. I cried. Amy finishes by giving herself a little pep talk about making Sonic respect her, and with that, Story 4 comes to a close. I really enjoyed this one. I was surprised by how solid Amy's levels were. Alrighty, just 2 more characters to go, and they are both very quick. We see Eggman boot up Gamma for the first time, and he tells us that Gamma is part of the E100 line of robots, E102 Gamma. I remember loving this story as a kid. Gamma had a gun way before Shadow had a chance to make them cringe. There is one slight problem though. Alright, somebody said about like the game's making them think they have tinnitus. Just you wait. You're gonna hear that sound a lot. To use Gamma's gun properly, we need to lock on with his laser targeting. The trade-off is every time you do that, you get that ear-piercing bleep. So that is pretty much the background sound of the entire Gamma story. We're sent to target practice where we blow up an army of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles dolls, and that barely takes a minute. Eggman then tells us that if Gamma wants to join the egg carrier crew, he'll need to pass a final test. We're introduced to our big brother, Beta, who is apparently far more advanced in design. Eggman says we must battle for the one spot in the crew, and that's pretty messed up right there, dude. Like most bosses in the game, it's an absolute joke. I just blast them a couple of times, and it's over as quick as anything. We're welcome to the crew, and Beta is told that he'll be kept around as a spare set of parts. Eggman's been a bit of a dick here, dude. We're then introduced to the full E100 crew, so Eggman can announce a special mission for us.
Behold, it's a tailed frog. Very unique.
Froggy!
This frog is absolutely vital to my plans. I command you to locate this frog immediately. You hear me? I don't care what it takes to get it. Just bring it to me.
I love this game, dude. It's not perfect, but it still passes the vibe check after all this time. So now I'm a giant robot boy stomping around town, and we also have a gun. Let's go. Our first real stage is Emerald Coast, and it's significantly shorter than it is for Sonic. Again, Gamma's gameplay is all about shooting, and as such, there are enemies everywhere. He can also turn into an adorable little car mode as opposed to running. I love him so much. We see that every robot has brought a jazzy looking frog with them, but of course ours is the one true Froggy. Eggman then zaps the other robots away and calls them worthless. He's extra awful in this story, and poor Gamma's just a sweet boy. We're told to go get the bird from Amy and shown which door to take, but on the way we get bamboozled by a spinny floor and take the wrong door, leading to something we're not meant to see. Beta being ripped apart and retooled into a thoughtless killing machine who can no longer think for himself. This provides good context for how Amy was so easily able to convince Gamma to free her. He was already questioning Eggman after this incident. While exploring the egg carrier, I came across a new power-up, the Jet Booster. This is an absolute game changer as it lets us hover for a short time. We see the Sonic vs. Gamma cutscene from the other perspective, and as such we need to battle with Sonic. But he made the mistake of bringing a Hedgehog to a gunfight. My guy literally cannot even move here. I just spam bullets and he can't fight back. What a boss fight. This time Gamma has the upper hand, but Amy still steps in to stop the fighting. Amy now does the Puss in Boots look, and Gamma stands down. After Amy and Tails fly off the crashing egg carrier, Gamma whips out the Go-Go Gadget helicopter, and he also leaves. Free from Eggman, Gamma now thinks about his friends in the E100 series, and decides that he must find and destroy them so he can free the animal cores within. Now, these last few levels are insanely short. It's honestly wild how quickly we blitzed through this part. We just cheesed it through the levels, blasting everything in sight, and very occasionally needed to jump or hover over an obstacle. Within the space of 2 minutes, I found E103, and it was time to set him free. With bullets! Just like the Sonic fight, we just used homing bullets, and there is essentially nothing they can do. Within about 20 seconds, Delta blew up, and the animal inside was free. Next up was Red Mountain to destroy Epsilon. I really don't have much to say about these levels. Compared to Sonic or Amy, there just isn't much going on here. We absolutely cheesed it through all the enemies and obstacles in the space of about a minute. Blew the boss up in 2 seconds, and did a little victory dance so we could move on to the next one. Gamma's final level, Hot Shelter, though, is definitely a highlight. Unlike the last two, it's a lot longer and more involved. Similar to with Amy, there are gears to jump across, there are also tons of enemies and some obstructive boxes to blow up. It's actually pretty vertical with lots of launch pads and ramps. There are these cute little crane game claws that can lift you to new locations. But by far, the very best feature is the trains. You need to shoot enemies and dodge obstacles, all whilst navigating the various carriages. This feels like something from a Mission Impossible movie, and I'm here for it. After that section, we take a huge fall into the very bowels of the Steamworks, and there we find our second to last target, Zeta. Sadly, despite looking like an absolute unit, Zeta is just as much of a wash as the previous two fights. There's just nothing to stop you from spamming your gun and shredding the entire health bar in just a few seconds. I seem to remember Beta putting up more of a fight when I was a kid, and now it's time to go face him and wrap up Gamma's arc. We head to the deck and see a heavily modified Beta flying overhead, therefore we chase after him and it's time to set him free. Now Beta's kind of awesome. He moves quickly and has a giant plasma blade arm. He also has a shield, so we can't just blitz him like the other three. The idea is to blow up and dodge any attacks that he sends your way until his shield goes down, and then he can get a cheeky hit in. When he's almost defeated, he also does a really cool section where he flies out of reach and barrages you with blasts. I wouldn't say this fight was difficult, but it was really enjoyable and a nice cap to Gamma's story, which I would call short and sweet. Beta blows up, freeing the animal that was his core. This time the animal is a flicky, and it flies around Gamma like it's trying to communicate. Gamma then has a memory of the picture in Birdie's locket, and he realizes that he contains the final flicky. Since he's now autonomous, he chooses to power down and free his core so that he can be with his family again. Aww. The newly freed Flicky then flies away from the Gamma robot, which is detonating in the background. With that concluded, the credits roll, and we only have one more character to play as before the final boss. Depending on your opinion, I may have saved the best or the worst for last. Alright, time to fish.
Select your character.
Big Story is by far the shortest since it has almost nothing to do with the main plot or other characters. We see him sleeping in his house in the jungle, and his buddy Froggy senses something amiss. We then see Chaos zooming towards him. Big wakes up and notices Froggy suddenly has a tail. Froggy's also acting strangely and doesn't want to be friends anymore. Oh no! And thus begins our epic quest. I got the free Froggy! I love Big, he's so clunky, and I especially love how he's even too large for certain doors. Froggy escapes under a car into the sewers, so Big does the only reasonable thing and just picks the car up. What a Chad. This leads to our first stage, Twinkle Park, and oh baby, it's fishing time. I remember being absolutely awful at these stages as a kid and spending hours on them, so I was very curious to see how I matched up after 20 years. Our goal here is to fish up Froggy, and the controls are essentially the same as Sega Bass Fishing. We can line up our cast and then see the perspective of our lure whilst we look for Froggy. We can reel the line in and let it sink by waiting. It took a few minutes to get Froggy's attention, but eventually he took the bait. Once you get a hit, you reel in by pressing or holding A, and you manage the tension bar shown in the bottom right. If this bar fills up, the line will snap, and if it empties, the target escapes. Thanks to Video 1 though, I was a top angling master and I managed to land Froggy on our very first try. Of course, he immediately runs away again, so it was on to level 2. On my way to the ice cap zone, we found a power-up. This flotation belt lets us float on top of the water rather than instantly sinking like most Sonic characters do. The ice cap stage has a gimmick in the form of all the water being frozen over. Takal tells us to use the nearby boulder to break the ice. It took me a while to find the spot, as I thought I was supposed to be breaking the whole sheet, but it's actually just a tiny patch. Sadly, despite my angling mastery, Froggy is just as picky as I remember, and it's really difficult to get him to bite the lure. We kept lining it up well and getting it in his face, but he's a wily one for sure. Eventually though, I figured out if you knock the thumbstick when he bites as opposed to pressing the A button, it seems to work way more often. The game doesn't teach you anything about how to play big, so I'm not surprised the kid me found it frustrating. With my new technique on deck, I was a Froggy catching demon. After tracking him down, it was only a matter of getting his interest, using the new thumbstick tech, and reeling him in for yet another time. Surely this time Big won't let Froggy escape, right? It's not Froggy!
Froggy? Uh-oh. No! Hold on there! Come back, please! Give me my friend back! I'm begging you, please!
Aw, poor Big. Big follows Gamma onto the egg carrier to rescue Froggy, and that leads us to his final stage. Hot Shelter's a cute one. Froggy has been stored in one of the fish tanks that we saw earlier in Amy's story. That means we need to explore them and find the one in which Froggy's being stored. We find the switch from Amy's playthrough, and Big spots Froggy in a tank. Therefore we add all the water and aquatic creatures into the area so we can find our Frogbird friend. Then I just needed to run around underwater until I found him, so I knew where to cast. Big stages are all pretty silly, but I enjoy them as a gimmick, and I really like the inclusion of a character that has essentially nothing to do with the main plot. He's just bumbling his way through. After spotting our amphibious ally, it was time to catch him for the 4th time. By this point, I was on board with the mechanics, and it was a thing of beauty. Whew, that was close. Ah. Ah. All those hours of top angler paying off, I'm telling you. Our very final goal is to escape the ship with Froggy, but this is Big we're talking about, so he just runs straight into Chaos, who's chilling out in the open. Eggman appears and reveals that Froggy stole Chaos's tail. This both weakened Chaos and was the reason why Froggy was trying to get back to them. Apparently Froggy somehow ate a second Chaos Emerald along the way, so Chaos 4 eats the 2 emeralds that turn him into Chaos 6, and then consumes Froggy to regenerate its tail as well. Our favourite blue blur shows up to stop Chaos 6, and upon finding a distressed Big, promises to help get Froggy back. This leads to the best boss fight in the game by far. This is such a meme, dude.
Aim for the frog and cast your lure.
Aim for the frog! Ah. He's just too good. And that's seriously it. Just beautiful. I love Big's story. It's so dumb, and it's just some good silly fun. Big then finds the Crash Tornado 2 left by Tails and just jacks it like a stone cold thug. He can't even fit inside the thing, but he flies it home because he's a beast. And that's that. Big and Froggy return home, the best of pals, and story number 6 comes to an end. So, at long last, we return to the menu, and there's now an additional 7th story chapter, Supersonic. Without further ado, it's time to finish this one for good. We see a cutscene showing that the red Chaos Emerald is still inside the abandoned tornado, and the Angel Islands are falling from the sky for a second time. Ruh-roh. A defeated Eggman laments yet another loss to Sonic, before coming across Chaos, who last we saw had disappeared from the egg carrier. We cut to Knuckles at the Master Emerald altar, who cannot work out why the island is still falling despite the Master Emerald being restored, and we can see the 6 Chaos Emeralds from the egg carrier. Knuckles then spots Eggman crashed on his island, and when he asks what happened, Eggman says that Chaos is out of control and betrayed him. Sonic and Tails arrive too late and find Knuckles was defeated and all of the emeralds are now missing. This leads to one last Takal vision to round out the story before the final boss. We see the Echidna tribe and their thirst for conquest have invaded the Emerald Altar, with only Takal and the Chow standing in their way. Takal's dad, being the swell fella he is, sends his army in anyway, and they knock both her and the Chow to the ground. This angers the Guardian Chaos, who off-screen uses the emeralds to eradicate the army. Desperate, Takal uses the Master Emerald to sacrifice herself in order to seal both her and Chaos away so that he cannot hurt anyone else in his anger. We cut back to the present day where Sonic and Tails are too late to retrieve the Red Emerald. Now that Chaos has all 7, we see what that means. This cutscene's actually still aged pretty well. Remember to stay hydrated, chap. The gang rush to Station Square, which has now been destroyed, and they watch as Eggman arrives in the egg carrier trying to get revenge. Chaos, however, just uses Hydro Pump and completely decimates the egg carrier in one hit. Takal then, for the first time, manifests in the present day. She tells us that Chaos will destroy the world in his anger, and we must find a way to stop him. We witness Chaos absorbing the last of the Emerald's power before yeeting them away. We get a nice scene of all of our heroes gathering the Chaos Emeralds and bringing them to Sonic. Tails says that Chaos only absorbed the negative energy from the Emeralds, and that Sonic can harness their true power to stop him. Convenient. What? Here we go, baby. Final boss time. Perfect Chaos versus Super Sonic. If you aren't familiar with Super Sonic, Sonic is essentially invincible in this form, but has a ring counter that constantly depletes. So long as you can keep your ring count up though, you're good. This fight plays out as needing to traverse the water at a high enough speed to ascend through Chaos and hit the core in his head, collecting rings along the way. If you're slowed by colliding with obstacles or one of his attacks though, you won't be able to reach the core. I remembered there being a fake out from when I was a kid, so I wasn't surprised here. Upon entering Phase 2, Chaos is way more aggressive and throws a huge number of attacks our way. Every time we get hit, it's costing us ring count time and the speed that we need to hit him. So there is some degree of challenge and pressure to this fight, and that's really good. He even starts sending giant water tornadoes when he's one hit away, and I ended up on only 15 rings, which was a bit spooky. Nevertheless, I kept my cool, and with some nimble dodging, it was time to finish this. We dealt the final blow, and with that, we officially beat Sonic Adventure DX for this challenge. We get a final cutscene of Chaos returned to his original form and surrounded by Chow. This causes him to realize that they weren't all wiped out by the Echidna tribe. Tails also says that Super Sonic neutralized the bad energy and Chaos is once again good. Takal appears and tells Chaos that the Chow now live peacefully with humans and these ones descend from those that he protected in the past. Aww. Takal and Chaos, now at peace, ascend into the sky and disappear. The gang spot Eggman sneaking away to plot his next scheme, and of course, our favourite hedgehog immediately chases after him towards their next adventure. And there we have it, another game down for the challenge. This video ended up way longer than planned, but I think the structure was the best way that I could have handled it, and I want these videos to be a great way for people to get the full experience of these games for years to come. So that concludes Sonic Adventure DX, a game that I would say is still fairly solid, but probably best enjoyed across multiple sittings. It took me 8 hours and 46 minutes to beat this one, but there's still plenty more on offer if you were to collect all the emblems and check out the Chow Garden. I gave this one a 3 for difficulty. There are a couple of bosses that took me a few attempts, but on average we were mostly cruising. Enjoyability scored a 6. I still love the adventure games after all these years, but it does get pretty repetitive across the characters, and I miss the level variety of the sequel. As always, if you made it to the end, then please enjoy a sneak peek at what I'll be playing next time. All right, chap. What do we got? What are we saying? Zoid's Full Metal Crash. So there it is. Game 11 will be our second Japan exclusive, Zoids Versus, an arena battle shooter thing with big robot animals. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing as they help the channel grow, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye-bye.